welcome back to the Conscious Contact podcast. My name is Janae and I am your host. And I want to continue my thought process from the last video and not duplicating. So please, before you stop listening to this, I'm not going to talk about the same thing again. But I started thinking after I finished recording that about pity because I think that that is where my mind first goes when I'm thinking, I feel sorry for no one. What I truly mean by that is I don't pity anyone. And first off, I just think that that is a cop-out emotion. I think that it's derogatory towards the person you're directing the pity at. And I think that first off, it makes them a victim without them asking you to make them a victim. And that's really disempowering for that other person. And I just don't feel like that is a good look. And in general, there was a comment on one of the last videos, and someone was kind of expunging on this thought process for me. And there comes a certain point where you have to take personal responsibility for where you're at. There's only so many times you can complain about a situation before you either change it or change your mindset, depending on what the situation is. And I think all of us have the ability to do that. And I think that, for me personally, saying that I can't is an old thought process. It keeps me stuck. It keeps me miserable. And it doesn't allow me to have freedom. It doesn't allow me to have just peace and ease with life if I'm constantly chewing over the same situation. And that doesn't mean that I don't do that. Believe me, I definitely do. But it's a lot faster now from when I'm sitting there feeling pity for myself, which is making myself a victim. I can see where I am not a victim, and I can see either where I can change something, either within myself or in the situation, or if I can't, I can see where I can move forward with changing my mindset about said situation. So, there's seasons of life where you just can't do anything about something. And this is a very light example, but we're building a home, and as it happens, things continue to be delayed. I'm sure anyone that's built a home will understand that. And I could live the rest of my life until the house is done being mad that it wasn't done when I wanted it to be done, which was back in December. Or I can continue to enjoy my life and realize that I can't build that house. What am I going to do about it other than just let it go? And things will happen as they're supposed to happen. I trust my contractor. I trust that he's going to choose the right tradespeople. And I trust that he's not going to give us unnecessary delays for no reason. So if I can't change the situation, I have to change my mindset around that situation. And I think that that is shifting from being a victim to being empowered. And that's available for everybody. I hope that everyone listening can understand that too. And that doesn't mean that I'm saying that this situation is okay or that I'm ignoring my feelings about it. It's the opposite of that. It's taking a look at my feelings on that particular situation and saying, you know what? Those feelings are valid, frustration, impatience, all of that. But what good are they doing me? Do I want to keep feeling like that? And sometimes the answer is yes. Sometimes I want to keep chewing on something for a while. And I'll chew on it until it starts to affect other areas of my life, until it starts to make me uneasy all the time instead of when I'm just thinking about that situation, because that's what happens for me. The more that I chew on something, the more I throw myself a pity party, the crappier my life and my mental health is going to get. And Luke has never watched Sopranos. It was randomly on HBO. I put it on in the background. I promise this has an end point. It has a point in general, maybe not an end point. But he started watching it, and I ended up, doing my little chores and piddling around the house. And then I was about to leave to go to a meeting, and I was like, oh, are you going to go upstairs and work? He's like, no, I'm going to watch the show. I'm invested. And I was so excited. I've already watched Sopranos. So he finished, or I guess we did, because we ended up, watching it together. And that was fantastic. And he ended up finishing it day before yesterday. And one of the things that they keep saying in the show, or Tony Soprano keeps saying in the show after he gets out of the hospital, is you walk around in pity for yourself. He keeps saying this to people because it was on this postcard while he was in the hospital. And I thought that that was such an interesting, like for him, for Tony Soprano to have that kind of thought process, to have that awakening. He's realizing that you can either choose to continue to be a victim of whatever you want and, put yourself in that position of being miserable for as long as you want to be, or you can choose to not do that. And for someone like Tony Soprano to have that realization, I think it's available for all of us. For someone like me to have had that realization, it's definitely available for all of us. And the other kind of quote saying that I've been ruminating on is, drum roll, please. You don't have to, you get to. And we're on the second week of January. How's everybody's resolutions doing? I hope you're enjoying the middle instead of just focusing on the goal. But I think that this is something that helps me to shift my mindset into gratitude immediately. So if I am in that pity party, if I am in that place where I'm feeling sorry for myself, or I feel like I have the right to be angry about something or whatever, or if I just feel frustrated, if I'm tired, or which is really code for me being lazy. Again, a very light topical example, exercising. I didn't want to yesterday, and I'm thinking, oh, I still have to do my strength training. I still have to make dinner. I still have to wash the dishes. I go through that to-do list in my head. And I put all of those in a have to thing, which makes me a victim of the situation. It makes it a burden instead of a gift. And if I can shift my thinking into saying, you know what, I get to do a strength training workout because I am able-bodied, I am not sick, I have the ability to, then that completely changes how I'm viewing the situation, at least for me. And it might not happen immediately. I still didn't really want to, but I started to lean into that feeling of, you know what, I get to. I have not only the mindset to look at it that way, which is a get to, but either I get to work out or I get to have muscle and bone loss when I get older. And it makes me realize how much that I have. And inherently, that gives me more motivation and determination to do whatever it is I'm about to do. I don't have to do the dishes. I get to. I have a home where I have enough dishes to fill up a sink if I want to. I have a dishwasher. You know what I mean? And again, I'm healthy and able-bodied enough to do the dishes if I want to. I have the money to buy food and make dinner and create all of these dishes that I now need to wash. I get to do that. Tax season's coming up and I'm like already dreading, oh, I have to do my taxes. I get to do my taxes. I get the financial freedom to know that I have that burden of doing my taxes. You know what I mean? I could have no income. I could live in a place where I pay even more taxes because, yes, that is possible. And I really believe that the more that I can think of situations in that way, where I can move from self-pity and I have to mentality into I get to, and that makes me the victor in any situation. And, you know, a lot of times I still don't get to that place. A lot of times I think, oh, I should think about it this way. That in and of itself is growth. That in and of itself, even if I don't get to that final place of being grateful for the dishes, it does shift my mindset even just a little bit. And it's that practice. It's changing that knee-jerk reaction of feeling like the weight of the world is on my shoulders and everything is so terrible and no one has it worse than me. Because and this might not be you, but I would love to throw myself a pity party because that makes me not personally responsible for anything anymore. I can stay in that victim mentality and I can just say, oh, well, and feel righteously angry or frustrated or whatever. And I don't have to work on those feelings. I can keep feeling that way as long as I want because I'm shifting the blame onto another person or another situation. And that, frankly, that's bullshit. It just really is. I get to work on myself. And it's hard. Yes, it is much harder than continuing to throw myself a pity party and not having to look at what my part in it is or try to change my mindset. It's so much easier to just sit and play the victim over and over. And for me, that is the very fast road into not only issues with my mental health, my attitude towards other people, but I'm an alcoholic and I will chew on that self pity. I will use that as medicine and self righteousness, and it will feed my ego because it relieves me of personal responsibility. And I see that a lot in social situations, on social media where people are potentially talking about an issue and they make themselves the victim or they make a whole group of people the victim. And sometimes that is very real in the case of abuse or anything like that. And I hope everyone listening already knows I'm not going to do a trigger warning, but you should understand I'm not talking about, actual victims of abuse, physical aggression, like those type of things. That is a completely different scenario. I am talking about my own self-pity and making myself a victim of situations that are really actually a privilege to be in. I've talked about the flat tire situation before. If you want to know if you are spiritually fit or not, get a flat tire. Or think about getting a flat tire and how you would react to that, or being late to something because of traffic. I know exactly where I'm at on my spiritual path, or where I'm at mentally if that situation happens. If I'm in there, cussing up a storm to myself, or saying, "Oh my gosh, this is, the worst thing that's ever happened." Like, I know that I'm not in a spiritually fit place. I know that I can be doing something better, and I get the chance while I'm in that delay to look at it and see what it is, where I could grow. Why am I frustrated? Because it isn't the traffic. It's never the traffic. It's never the dishes. It's never the situation. It is something going on inside of me that I have the opportunity to work on. And it's those moments of frustration that offer me the insight to then be able to grow. I want to be thankful for the hard times. I want to get to that point where I should be thankful. And that's something that's really, really hard for me. I think it's hard for most people. And it talks about that in any kind of spiritual book that you will look at is, being glad and grateful in the good times, but even more importantly, being glad and grateful in the bad. That is where true growth comes for me. That is where I really learn about myself, is in those moments of weakness or a struggle situation, a moment of real pain. I don't learn a whole lot about myself or grow a lot in the good times. Like, yes, I will still grow a little, but it's much easier for me to see the growth opportunities when I have that inflection point of pain or struggle. And I'm really lucky that I get the opportunity to choose how happy I am in my life. And it doesn't happen immediately and it is difficult. But if I can choose to be self pitying and upset and depressed and, whatever. And again, I'm not talking about actual chemical depression, I'm talking about situational issues. I get to choose today where I didn't get to before. And I was a victim of my situation all the time. My whole happiness was dependent on other people and how situations turned out. And how terrible that is, because I can't control anyone else. The only person that I can control is me. And if I am reliant on other people for my happiness, I will constantly be disappointed, no matter what, because I will find fault. Even if these are the best people in the world, they're still humans. They're still going to let me down. They're still not going to do exactly what I want them to do, exactly the way I want them to do it, exactly when I want them to do it. So if I can remove that expectation, if I can remove relying on outside sources for my happiness, and I can be happy just being, and that requires gratitude for me. That requires constantly reminding myself of how grateful, how lucky, how blessed I am to be living the life that I'm living, regardless of the situation. And really paring it down to the basics, like the roof over my head, food to eat, and warmth and cold. I just for me, I really have to take it back down to that place. And again, this does not mean that I am ignoring my feelings. This doesn't mean that I'm running away from those hard feelings of frustration and anger and resentment. It means that I'm dealing with them on a very real level. I'm doing the opposite of ignoring them. I'm diving into them and figuring out why I really feel that way. Because again, it's never the person, the place, or the thing. It really is something deeper. And that's kind of the whole point of this podcast. It's even if it starts at surface level, it really is deeper, or I hope that it is, you know. I get the opportunity. I get the opportunity to talk to a camera and upload this to the internet and other people listen to it. It's still very wild to me. And that is really interesting. I mean, that is a benefit of this, the age of technology that we're in, and having this outlet on social media to kind of not only process this in front of however many people watch this, but to be able to process it along with you potentially and connect even though we're not together physically. I think that that is a huge deal. I think that that is something that's really necessary, and there's a lot of surface level connection that's out there, and you can find it wherever social media is. But I'm personally searching for something deeper, and me recording this is kind of fulfilling part of that. And again, I could be the victim of that situation and say, "Oh, I don't have anything that's really filling me up right now, other than these few little podcasts or books that I've been reading." But it's there if I want to make it, build it and they will come. I mean, if it's something that I see a need for, why don't I just do it? And again, shifting from being a victim to being empowered. And how can I do that? What's the best way to do that? And I am reading a book right now. It's by Emmett Fox. It's called Sermon on the Mount. And I highly recommend it, regardless of your religious affiliation or not. It is really interesting. It is related to, the biblical, Jesus's, if you believe in that, Sermon on the Mount, and the true meaning of the Beatitudes. I don't ever know how to say that, and how it is more of a metaphysical, spiritual speech and not a religious one, and how it is really showing us how to not be a victim of our life and how to truly enjoy everything to the fullest, and what life really is all about. So I hope that you are on some kind of growth or spiritual journey this year. And if you're clicking on this video, I guess you're at least interested in it a little bit. And if not, hey, welcome. That is who I am as a human. That is what I try to do. I want to be, 1% better than I was yesterday. And whether that's just a shifted mindset, whether that's just noticing my anger a little bit sooner. I'm not perfect, and I don't expect anyone else to be either, but we're all on this journey together, perfectly imperfect. Practice does not make perfect. Practice makes permanent in my mind. So I'm speaking of changing habits, which is, for me, a lot of what my character defects are, is just changing that knee-jerk reaction to something a little bit lighter, or at the very least, noticing that I have another way of reacting to a situation. So thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you in the next one.